Careful, careful, careful. Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. Well, in tonight's Undaunted, we witness some rest sweeping across the nation of Ambazonia as the people persist with their unwavering resolve to reclaim their long-lost territory, their long-lost sovereignty. The growing tensions have emerged just after the fully respected national lockdown, as we ordered by the Ambazonian government, a lockdown declared by the Ambazonian government. And just days away, as Ambazonia prepares to celebrate October 1st, the true Independence Day of the former British Southern Cameroons, the historic day marking Ambazonia's rightful claim to sovereignty, it has become a focal point of resistance against La République du Cameroun, whose regime has consistently tried to erase this date from the nation's collective memory, replacing it with their own colonial narrative. The ongoing conflict in Ambazonia has taken a devastating turn, with increased violence and clashes between the national territory in turmoil, despite colonial authorities' assertions that normalcy has been restored. The reality on the ground paints a starkly different picture. Civilians continue to bear the brunt of the crossfire, facing immense hardships and uncertainty. The escalating hostilities have cast serious doubts over the resumption of school operations in Ambazonia, with parents and educators caught in a state of limbo, unsure where it is safe to return their children to schools. The humanitarian crisis deepens as communities struggle to navigate the dangers posed by the persistent conflict. The government of Ambazonia has voiced strong concerns, urging for immediate and effective measures to ensure the safety and well-being of Ambazonian residents and students. The Ambazonian government has urged parents to make a determination of when schools would have to resume or if the status quo is safe. Technically, one could depict that the leadership of Ambazonian's liberation movement would have assessed and made a determination that the nation at war isn't safe for effective schooling. We have heard the government say many times that saving lives today is better politicizing school resumption. Meanwhile, some international observers call for a comprehensive and lasting solution, a lasting resolution to the conflict that has gripped the people for far too long, 8 years and counting. We have seen from Moya to Bamenda, Ekok to Kumba, and Buyi to Ngoketunja crossfires daily. But the BS government wants the world to think differently, that normalcy is returning. But I would say it is far-fetched. As has been depicted, the disparity between the colonial authorities' claim and the actual conditions in Ambazonia highlights the urgent need for transparent and honest dialogue. As the situation remains highly volatile, the true path to peace and stability continues to be elusive, leaving the people of Ambazonia in a state of enduring uncertainty and distress. It is in this note we get into the full briefings of Undaunted tonight when we get the prime headlines.
It's another year and another Independence Day for a people at war. Once again, the time has come for Ambazonians across the globe to unite and celebrate their independence on October 1st, a day of pride, hope, and renewed purpose is upon us.
As we mark this significant occasion with cultural representations, dances, military parades from the Amazonian State Army, all eyes will turn to the leader of the revolution.
Fellow Ambazonians, patriotic diasporas, I salute all of you gathered around our flag on this National Day, our Independence Day.
President Samuel Ikome Sako on the eve of Independence Day. Join us on September 30th at 8 p.m. as President Samuel Ikome Sako addresses the nation.
Today, as the Never Again generation, we have one assignment to right this great wrong through the sword of justice, with the flame of our courage and the undying spirit of our righteous resolve. So whether we live or die, let it be for Ambazonia.
In these trying times, amidst an 8-year conflict with La République du Cameroon, President Sako's words are expected to spark hope and chart a new direction.
Let me tell you again in a simple language. The person who does not want his neighbor to sleep should expect a knock on his door.
While the date for the war to end remains uncertain, brace yourselves for a roadmap towards a smarter prosecution of our liberation movement, a vision full of promise and determined leadership. Prepare to be inspired as we honor our journey and look forward to a brighter future.
To remind the world of our genocide and the injustice done to us as a nation by France and the complicit international community. Share our story with passion and courage, knowing that no one feels our pain more than we do, and no one knows our story more than those who have lived it, us. Let us fight as one man.
Tune in live across all multimedia platforms and catch this monumental speech only on your favorite TV channel. Don't miss this pivotal moment. Together, let's reignite the spirit of Ambazonia.
This Independence Day, immerse yourself in the words of our leader. Be part of history in the making.
Here are the prime headlines for tonight. A man at his prime in Bamenda speaks out on how he was abducted, flogged, and detained by La République du Cameroon colonial military. Colonial forces on Monday killed a young girl as they sprayed bullets in the name of hunting the Ambazonian State Army. Tonight on Undaunted, we'll take a look at colonial surrogates targeting Ambazonian business for observing lockdown. The colonial forces' systematic oppression in Ambazonia is another report for tonight, as well as the IED attack in Bamenda, Sabotage, and Retaliation. Meanwhile, on the African scene, Sudan's escalating conflict and humanitarian crisis is on while UN General Assembly adopts resolution on Israeli occupation. Now let's get the news in full briefings. Despite claims of restored normalcy, the Ambazonian region remains gripped by escalating insecurity. The harsh reality on the ground paints a dire picture, from nationwide lockdown, which is also a means of restricting movement and access. Gunfire exchanges continues unabated, fueling fear and uncertainty. Education disrupted, leaving students vulnerable to violence. The contrast between reported progress and grim reality raises pressing questions. What defines normalcy in Ambazonia? Who benefits from downplaying the crisis? When will tangible solutions be implemented? And how do people say there is normalcy? Well, with this, we welcome you to tonight's Undaunted. How are you doing, sir?
Splendid on you. Well, in Tuba, as it is, after the life of a young girl in her prime was cut short by the La République du Cameroon colonial military. The incident happened on Monday, September 16, 2024, when colonial forces invaded Kejum, Kitingu village in Tuba local government area. Now, shooting randomly and killing a young girl in the process. The thugs not only invaded, but also other localities like Babanki Tsingi, prompting the villagers to flee for their lives. At first time, Undaunted had not gotten the identity of the assassinated girl after the atrocities, and as a way to cover their crime, the colonial forces tagged the girl an Amba fighter, an allegation that a relative vehemently refuted.
Well, the relative who voted for anonymity opined that the sister only took refuge in a nearby house for safety during the deafening gunshots by the colonial forces without any questioning or investigation whosoever who was shot at. Well, it was not a stray bullet that killed my sister. She was shot at close range by the terrorist Yaoundé military, she added. Well, this incident comes to add to the gruesome shooting to death of a commercial motorcyclist at Upstation Hill in Bamenda by the same La République du Cameroon colonial forces. No one is safe in Ambazonia. No one is safe in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia with the presence of La République du Cameroon colonial forces.
Well, since the unholy union between La République and the Southern Cameroons, the colonial administration has employed aggressive strategies of oppression and intimidation against the people of Ambazonia. And not just the killing of this innocent young girl, but then a latest operation also highlights how this tactics persists in targeting innocent civilians, illustrating a disturbing continuity of state-sponsored terror enabled by the colonial regime.
Well, reports reveal that the colonial police and gendarmes arrested individuals indiscriminately with and without national identification documents. While in various neighborhoods across Boya, including Moko, Mile 17, Bumaka, and the Sandpits, the arrest coincides with the scheduled screening of a documentary film featuring President Paul Biya, a move designed to reinforce the dominance of the colonial administration, which uses such events to suppress dissent and show force.
Now, since the end of the lockdown, the region has seen sporadic arrests and escalating tensions from the colonial regime. These operations are not isolated events, but are part of a long-standing practice of using brute force, abductions, and intimidation as tools to maintain control over Ambazonian population. On the morning of September 18th and the following day, reports surfaced of mass arrests throughout Boya. These colonial forces operating without restraint abducted young people from their homes and streets, taking them to colonial police stations in Moya and Moko. And this has been since yesterday and today, with some being transferred to the central police station and the Gendarmerie Legion office. Families remain in constant fear for the safety of their loved ones, as this form of arbitrary arrest, popularly called Kale Kale, has become routine. The targeting of civilians, particularly the youth, points to a calculated effort by the colonial regime to suppress any resistance by inflicting widespread fear.
While the colonial forces' actions are not accidental or incidental, but form part of a broader strategy to silence Ambazonian voices. This is evidenced by their continuous human rights violation, including the abduction of innocent civilians, often without due process. These acts are not new. They reflect the colonial regime's historical pattern of oppression and human rights abuses. If these atrocities were not state-sponsored, how they have continued unchecked for decades? That's the question we are asking. How come they have continued to stay unchecked for decades? Well, the ongoing unchecked brutality indicates that these actions align with the intentions of the colonial administration. This oppressive regime does not recognize the value of Ambazonian lives, and its forces act with impunity, suggesting that they are carrying out orders to further entrench colonial control through violence and intimidation.
Well, the mass arrest and ongoing violence in Ambazonia, yet again another grim reminder of the colonial regime's disregard for the rights and dignity of the Amazonian people. The fact that these human rights abuses continue without any consequence strongly suggests that they are sanctioned, if not directed, by the colonial administration, unless the international community and local leaders hold the regime accountable for these violations. The people of Ambazonia might continue to suffer under this oppressive system. The end of this brutality, however, is inevitable, as the resilience and determination of the Amazonian people to be free from the colonial clutches of La Republique will eventually prevail.
All right, before we proceed with the rest of the reports this evening, we have our in-house analyst, Barrister Mgbeseha. We needed to take the two reports because they all are talking about the unrest in Ambazonia. Barrister Mgbeseha, this is highly sad. And then it's crazy and, funny and saddening as well that some persons would still cry of normalcy being returned when people lose their lives on a regular basis. Barrister Mgbeseha, what would you say?
I think what has been going on the past 8 years or so is very, very, and that by itself causes us to analyze it differently. We look backwards to see where we're coming from, so that we can know where we're going to. We should remind ourselves that the Cameroon deployed its military and their security forces all over Ambazonia. The question we must ask is, what do they call security forces? They are the military, they are the police, they are the gendarmes, and the B. And let's not forget, these people, all of them, have gone through some training in the military school or in the police academy. They've been trained. So what were they trained in this school, in these institutions? The training basically in Cameroon and everywhere else in the world is for the military to defend the country. The military or all those people carrying arms are supposed to know who is their enemy. And so there is nothing in the code of their training that the population, the people, the civilians are your enemies. And so in a regular situation, even in a regular war situation, if a military guy mistakenly kills or wounds a civilian, that guy will be subject to discipline, possibly a dismissal from the job. And so when you find a trained military go out and they target essentially the population and kill them, that is against national standards. That's against international standards. That's a violation of the law for which the individuals committing the acts and the commanders giving the orders should be punished. It should be sanctioned. They should be court-martialed. That's short and the simple of it. Because let us not tell what is not us. When they kill the people, when they shoot the people, they have modified their language. They cannot say, well, armed men. They don't even say Ambazonians. or named terrorists. People assume that they are men around there, or whatever they call terrorists. Are you allowed to shoot at the population with the hope that in that shooting you might kill one terrorist or one unknown armed man? You're not allowed to do. If you do that, you're breaching the rules of engagement. You're violating your own laws that you receive in training, your rules, and you're violating international law for which Cameroon has signed international conventions showing the engagement of arms. That is worldwide. And so what are these people doing? People, where's their goal? They probably say there. Cause normalcy. There's nothing in the world, anywhere in the world, known as normalcy with the barrel of the gun. Once the barrel of the gun, the arm comes into play, it's no longer normalcy. It's a fake normalcy. Just like in your own house, your children should obey you. But if the children obey you because you are beating them, you are forcing them, beating them up, caning them, as we call it in those days. You are forcing order into them. But going further, as ourselves, I said we must look back to see where we're coming from. We're early years into this struggle. This is happening now. It has been happening forever, but it's tripling now. They are finding themselves, according to them, by their own records. They are shooting to fight unknown armed men, to fight terrorists in the city of Bamenda, in the city centers. Where were they when terrorists invaded the cities and took over urban centers? About a month or so ago, we said here that this fight has transitioned, has metamorphosed from rare guerrilla warfare to urban guerrilla warfare. They're in the center of the cities. But you know what? The generalized disorder where people are dying. That's urban guerrilla warfare. They detonate bombs in the city. No gun, no barrel, no AK-47 will shoot a gun, will shoot a bomb planted in the ground. And so the war has moved from guerrilla warfare in the bushes to urban guerrilla warfare. And I said it many times before here, I don't know any country in the world that wins an urban guerrilla warfare with guns. Never. It has never happened anywhere else in the world. Once the war transitions from the rare guerrilla warfare in the bushes to urban guerrilla warfare, all countries that I know, they negotiate an end to it. They don't fight. And so that is a total disgrace of what is going on. It is normal. They're not fighting Ambazonians. They are killing the people. They were trained with taxpayers' money, including money from Ambazonians, who are forced to pay those taxes, or whose money is extorted to pay them. So they put the come around, kill them at random in the streets. If they are a government, and I'm sure they are, they claim, I've said it before, they will go in, arrest the criminals they call terrorists, arrest whoever is throwing a spear. And again, what's the proportionality of their gun? Shooting you to kill, shooting a crowd. Who have been doing nothing? That man killed, that person killed in a Babanki, whatever you call it. He just walked in the street. They didn't say, nobody saw any harm with him. So what's the justification for murdering people because you want to impose normalcy? By the way, what is normalcy? It means people moving up and down. When this guy is moving up and down, just like they did with the other bike rider yesterday, they kill him. So how do you then, what normalcy do you want then? It's simple normalcy. So again, the lesson we've learned is going forward, the war, they are not winning. They are not winning this war. There was a book, I read that book, dealing with the Spanish Civil War. They published a book called The Gun. Once the military turns is gone and start to fire around them, Those are signs of defeat. Those are signs of defeat. Because, again, looking back, in 2018, when they arrested people and locked them up, when they arrested Sissoko, they thought that was the end of it. Well, it is almost 10 years, 8 years since the Sissoko went to jail. They are no longer in the field. They have been talking with them in prison. But the war has instead multiplied and tripled. Deaths have increased, killed by unknown armed men, and officially by the Cameroon military. And so that's what it is. By international standards, those soldiers are criminals. They would face trial later, sooner or later. The people giving them the orders are war criminals. Because any war commander, a commander who gives orders to shoot the civilians, the population, you'll be taken down, you'll be taken out of the field. We live in the United States, you can try that. You kill somebody by mistake, you're out of the force. And you find yourself in jail. So these people are criminals from the beginning to the end, from the top to the bottom. Orders are coming from the top, going right down to the bottom. Nobody is being held accountable for anything. And what can we say? It's just a question of time. Now that we're in an urban guerrilla warfare situation, victory is eventually ours. Where do we define victory? We define victory when they are forced to come to the conference table and sit down and talk the peace. That's all what it is. They will do it sooner or later. Over to you.
All right, Barrister Mgbeseha, we still have another report that has to do with this insecurity as well. And so this report says that a man has suffered gross human rights violation at the hands of La Republic de Cameroon Colonial Military Station at Mile 4 in Bamenda. Now, this man, just by working on the street, was abducted by the colonial military, molested, and was only freed from captivity after paying a ransom of 110,000 francs and spending a night in the hands of the kidnappers. In an audio recording, this guy explained the deal he went through at the hands of the colonial military with a base at Mile 4 Unquaim in Bamenda, the chief town of the Midland Zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Now, he recorded himself from the hospital bed where he's fighting to regain his health after the beatings and mental torture he suffered during the process.
Now, from the audio, after he was stopped on the way by a colonial truck, he was not given any opportunity to say a word, as any attempt on his part brought another heavy beating to him. Now, he was bundled into the colonial pickup truck. His phone was seized and searched. With no incriminating evidence whatsoever in his phone, he was taken to his home and workshop, where the thugs, the colonial untrained military, scattered and tumbled his entire house looking for what we are not yet sure of. Even when he was clean on every instance, from his phone to his house, he wasn't still released. Even though everybody expected him to be released, he was rather beaten up and compelled to pay a sum of 20,000 after his human rights being violated by the colonial police force. It was after a lot of pleading that he was finally freed after paying 110,000 francs CFA in total to secure his release. This is one too many of what Ambazonians are going through in the hands of the colonial regime of Paul Biya. Just within September, about 500 persons were abducted at Nitop in Bamenda and had to pay 10,000 francs CFAs to regain their freedom from the hands of the forces of occupation.
Right, before we head back to Barrister Mgbeseha, let's take a look at this IED explosion that happened in Unquaim.
In Bamenda.
Unquaim in Bamenda, yeah.
Well, we see improvised explosive devices, which have traditionally been weapons used by the Ambazonian State Army against the colonial forces and primarily targeting the military personnel and their armored vehicles in non-civilian areas. However, recent developments suggest that either the colonial forces or The pseudo-liberation factions may now not only be in possession but also use these IEDs. The Ambazonian State Army has consistently avoided using explosives in civilian areas, focusing solely on their opposition, the colonial military. Numerous videos have shown their direct confrontations with colonial military, avoiding harm to civilians where they explode most times their armored vehicles. But then, since the end of the lockdown, as we know, chaos has ensued the nation of Ambazonia, likely as a retaliation by the colonial forces for the people's adherence to the national lockdown. This has included a rising number of shoot on sight incidents, as we just brought to you, with the colonial regime routinely dismisses as accidental shots or excuse themselves saying these people were Amba fighters. Yet these accidental shots cause innocent lives. It's either after the national lockdown, it's either been shoot on sites or mass abductions without formal charges, as well as being the latest, the IED explosion, leaving uncertainty about who really was behind it. The period following the national lockdown has been marked by relentless turmoil.
Well, the full report says that in the morning, an IED exploded in the Ukraine market area of Bamenda, injuring at least 4 people who have been rushed to the Bamenda Regional Hospital. The blast also destroyed several food stands, causing panic as residents fled the scene in fear. Reports of gunfire soon followed escalating tensions. The exact circumstances of the incident remains unclear, but the chaos has left residents struggling to comprehend the attack. Several factors point to the possibility of sabotage by liberation forces. Well, the colonial administration, along with proxy militias disguised as liberation fighters, has repeatedly used such tactics to undermine the genuine efforts of the Ambazonian State Army. These proxy forces are known to extort and terrorize the civilian population, whom the ASA is committed to protecting. This incident bears the hallmark of such acts of sabotage: the deliberate targeting of a vulnerable civilian location, chaos, the 2021 Nkambe bombing, an attack that was initially claimed to be from the Pseudo Liberation Group, later proven to have been executed by a proxy militia of the colonial regime. This pattern is a reminder of how the colonial administration seeks to discredit genuine Ambazonian efforts by perpetuating violence through proxies.
Well, as Ambazonia prepares to celebrate its Independence Day on October 1st, 2024, this attack appears to be yet another attempt by the colonial regime to distract and demoralize the people. For years, the regime has tried to overshadow Ambazonia's independence with its May 20th annexation celebrations, but the resilience of the Ambazonian people has remained unwavering. This latest incident, though tragic, will not deter Ambazonians from commemorating their struggle for freedom and self-determination. The IED explosion in Bamenda is yet another example of the colonial forces and their proxies using violence to destabilize Ambazonia, while the real perpetrators remain unidentified. The attack follows a well-worn pattern of sabotage designed to tarnish the Amazonian liberation movement and the image of the Ambazonian State Army. Well, as October 1st approaches, this tragic event serves as a reminder that the fight for Ambazonia's reclaimed independence will continue undeterred by the violent distractions of the colonial regime. Now, before we head on to the next report of concern, we'll have to get Barrister Mgbeseha with us again here in the studio. Yes, Barrister Mgbeseha, still speaking of the colonial antics. We seem to see more aggression from the side of the colonial forces with regards to post-national lockdown. It's like their aggression has gotten even more intense and even more worse, and not just in Bamenda, but different other counties and local government areas of Ambazonia. It is either abductions or shoot on sites have continued, or even these improvised explosive devices. So with regards to this very last report, I'd like to get your reaction. Barrister Mgbeseha. We want to be sure the connection is clear and you can hear us.
What is this aim at? Is it
Your network is not the best tonight. It's not the best right now, and we could barely hear you.
Whoever planted that explosive device? Where were the so-called government security?
Okay. Barrister Mgbeseha would
This not
Barrister Mgbeseha, I would have to give you a minute to get your
directed.
connection better if possible. So we'll have you back after we take this report because the network is not really the best tonight. So we'll give you a minute to have that fixed. If you can hear me, we'll give you a minute to have that fixed and then we'll get back to you. But then speaking of the retaliation tactics of the colonial administration, it still continued, not only with the shootouts, not only with the shooting on innocent civilians, not only on the abductions, the mass arrest with no charges. We're also seeing it in businesses shut down for observing the lockdown only.
Yeah, a recent case in Kumba reveals the retaliatory actions taken by the colonial administration using their surrogates to frustrate business owners who respected the national lockdown. Now, this testimony from a local businessman illustrates the colonial forces' systematic efforts to push Ambazonians for compliance with the lockdown, which was observed in defiance of the colonial regime. Well, several businesses in Kumba have had their shops sealed since September 11th after owners decided to observe the lockdown. Despite repeated attempts by business owners to have their stores reopened, authorities have refused to grant any audience or show willingness to resolve the matter. According to businessmen, efforts to not negotiate with officials have been fruitless. Even though bribery is widely known as a common practice in such situations, in this case, however, the usual methods of offering tokens to reopen stores have been deliberately ignored. The businessman notes that several high-ranking officers at the Kumba Council have been consulted, yet they continue to dribble business owners, offering vague promises while keeping the stores sealed. In some instances, officers have suggested that the shops may remain locked for up to 6 months. The prolonged closure has created frustration and desperation amongst the affected business owners.
Yes, from this information we got from this victim, at the center of the extortion racket is an officer named Mohammed who is responsible for sealing the stores. He is notorious for demanding bribes in exchange for reopening businesses, with many Nigerians who are immigrated to that particular area reportedly paying him the sums of 20,000 francs CFAs to 30,000 francs CFAs to have their stores unsealed. Despite this, when Ambazonian business owners go to him to pay this bribe to have theirs also reopened, he dismisses them with a very sluggish attitude, refusing to engage with them. His selective extortion further illustrates the targeting of Ambazonian businesses as a part of a broader strategy of retaliation, like it's an instruction from a superior to not open the stores of the Ambazonian business owners. Well, this tactics of sealing stores is a clear form of punishment for the people's decision to respect the national lockdown. The colonial administration, through surrogates like Mohammed, is using this measure to undermine and frustrate those who align with the Ambazonian cause. The refusal to attend to Ambazonian businesses while selectively unsealing those who pay bribes is another example of the regime's use of intimidation and economic sabotage to maintain control over Ambazonia. The situation in Kumba is a reflective and a reflection of how the colonial administration employs local operatives to retaliate against the oppressed peoples of Ambazonia for their peaceful acts of resistance in respecting the national lockdown. Such tactics do not only disrupt the livelihood of business owners who are Ambazonians, but also serve as a reminder of the broader effort to silence and undermine the Ambazonian fight for freedom. Just before we go, to be sure that we can still hear you, Mgbeseha, I would like to try your connection one more time. Otherwise, we'll hope to have you on Saturday again. Mgbeseha, you were saying something before the connections disrupted.
Yes, I was saying something about the IDPs, the IEDs, the explosive devices. I said those things are planted by people. It's not a bomb thrown, just planted there. It takes time to plant it. And the issue is, where were the security people in Bamenda town when this thing was planted? They were not there. Are you getting me? Are you getting me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, they were not there. But what's interesting is what they wrote, what I saw there, the prefect wrote something about it. And he said it was done by terrorists, one. He called on the people to remain calm, two, that they will go and fish out the people who have done all this. Well, this looks like a repeated promise that they have not fulfilled. They have been saying that they will go and fish out the people, and they have fished out nobody. And that will go to confirm what I said in my earlier segment. That is now urban guerrilla warfare. They might not have been planted by our restoration forces. We don't target our civilians. But when you as a government allow disorder to become the order of the day, criminals will take advantage of it. Unwanted people will take advantage. The responsibility is yours, the government. We have said many times here that we don't have any responsibility for security. Yeah, the government and the agents have the responsibility to guarantee security. They have the police force, they have the courts. If they're not doing it, they have failed. And again, this is Bamenda. A few 6 months ago, we saw the ambassador of France in Bamenda promising the people of Bamenda heaven, gold, and silver. Where are those promises? Why is Bamenda still going through this? That's urban, which they will not win. And let me take it to closing down. Let me take it to this idea of arresting people massively. I said yesterday that they are not arrests, they are abductions. Because the abductors has an aim to get something from the abductee. Adoption of mass people massively is an illegal act. You're not allowed to do that internationally and locally. And so what they did in Boya or Kumba or wherever, I'm calling it Calais Calais. Calais Calais is a French word. I've looked through, I said yesterday. I'm not seeing where Calais Calais operates anywhere else in the world. Where they move to an area and arrest people, abduct people, put them in their trucks, go extort money from them. They don't let them go. Here in Boya, they were letting people go if you give 25,000. That power who we showed there, he will not go, in addition to assaulting him, he will not go free until he paid all what he had for his own freedom. No receipts are given to you after all that. It's nonsense. Fast forward to what is showed, locking up of stores. We've had the opportunity to say it here many times before. You pay your license, your business license for the year. If you open the store, that's not the problem of the guy. All what you need to do is to pay the money. What is their concern with you locking up your store? I think we said it some months back. The traders have a tool which they are not using themselves. We said in Bamenda, let the traders adopt one common thing. One store locked, all stores are locked. We see who will suffer. Because the colonial masters, they buy from the same market. They buy the same food, they go to the same market. So if they set everything because locked this place, so be it, they will be tired. I remember in Kumba one time, they came begging the people. And so you see what the notice they put there. I've seen something there in the notice in Kumba. That brings it to the notice in Manfe. Also in Manfe, what they put at your door after stealing your store. In Manfe, this one in Kumba. In Manfe, the thing is written in French. Default, the paiement, that's French. So they are paying this thing, putting a language in French in Manfe. And if you as you see it there, what they put in Kumba there, application, they put there that account notice, you have pattern. You have not paid your taxes, which is a lie. They know that they are being watched, so they fabricate this evidence. I just wish, which is impossible, the country was still a country. Those traders should jointly sue the council for a refund of their money. Because they are writing there, the default of payment of taxes, which is a lie. So this guy, he called Mamadou, whoever is collecting the money, he collects more money for himself. He gives you no receipt for that. It's bribe. And I hear what was happening in Kumba, if the story is true. The whole thing is being facilitated by foreign traders, able people, who rather go and pay to go open their stores than to resist. They go and give the bribe. And so it is wrong. It is illegal. That should not. First, because they have no right to lock your store. One, because you have paid your pattern. Two, even if you have paid the pattern, you don't want to open the store anymore. You have not offended anybody. You have offended nobody. If I paid my rent and then I went to the village to bury my father for 1 year, I'm going to cry there. What's the problem there? Absolutely no problem. So again, the traders have a tool which they can use. It's part of civil disobedience. If they come together and say, okay, one store locked, all stores locked, you will find the government coming to beg them. We call them council. They will beg them. Because the duo will have nowhere to go and buy. His wife will not have a place to go. The janda will have no bread to eat. And they will beg you for that. So we are urging our people, anywhere, Kumba, Manfe, Bamenda, wherever they are, they should adopt this policy. Let them group themselves and tell the councils or whoever are doing that, one store locked, every store locked. That is one of the arms of civil disobedience. Then they will listen to them. So that's what I can say about that. Over to you.
That is such a very great idea, a very calm yet powerful tool. Unity in strength, one store locked, all store locked. Thank you so much, Barrister Mgbeseha, for joining us on Undaunted yet again tonight. We do appreciate your presence. Do have a good night while we head on to the African news.
Me too.
On the African scene, we see the humanitarian crisis in Sudan continuing to worsen as more than 16 months of war have devastated the nation. In a recent United Nations Security Council meeting, the focus was on the escalating violence in the country, particularly in El Fasher, where civilians are enduring appalling suffering, according to United Nations Assistant Secretary General for Africa, Marta Ama Akia Pobi. The Rapid Support Force ongoing siege of the city has left the population on the brink of famine.
Stand with Amba. It's another year and another Independence Day for a people at war. Once again, the time has come for Ambazonians across the globe to unite and celebrate their independence on October 1st. A day of pride, hope, and renewed purpose is upon us.
As we mark this significant occasion with cultural representations, dances, military parades from the Ambazonian State Army, all eyes will turn to the leader of the revolution.
Fellow Ambazonians, patriotic diasporas, I salute all of you gathered around our flag on this national day, our Independence Day.
President Samuel Ikome Sako, on the eve of Independence Day. Join us on September 30th at 8 p.m. as President Samuel Ikome Sako addresses the nation.
Today, as the Never Again generation, we have one assignment to right this great wrong through the sword of justice, with the flame of our courage and the undying spirit of our righteous resolve. So whether we live or die, let it be for Ambazonia.
In these trying times, amidst an 8-year conflict with La République du Cameroon, President Sako's words are expected to spark hope and chart a new direction.
Let me tell you again in a simple language. The person who does not want his neighbor to sleep should expect a knock on his door.
While the date for the war to end remains uncertain, brace yourselves for a roadmap towards a smarter prosecution of our liberation movement, a vision full of promise and determined leadership. Prepare to be inspired as we honor our journey and look forward to a brighter future.
To remind the world of our genocide and the injustice done to us as a nation by France and the complicit international community. Share our story with passion and courage, knowing that no one feels our pain more than we do, and no one knows our story more than those who have lived it, us. Let us fight as one man.
Tune in live across all multimedia platforms and catch this monumental speech only on your favorite TV channel. Don't miss this pivotal moment. Together, let's reignite the spirit of Ambazonia.
This Independence Day, immerse yourself in the words of our leader. Be part of history in the making.
On the African scene, still on the Sudan war, it has quite deepened the conditions in camps like Zamzam. Well, this conflict, the Sudan war, which erupted in April 2023 due to the power struggle between the military and the paramilitary group, has decimated infrastructure, leading to the closure of hospitals and medical facilities. The humanitarian situation remains dire, with nearly 3/4 of the population projected to require aid by the end of the year. The implication of this conflict was devastating, and they are still devastating as the continued instability threatens regional security and overwhelms already scarce humanitarian resources.
So we talk about the electoral integrity in Ghana at risk amidst voter roll disputes. So in Ghana, tensions are mounting ahead of the upcoming general elections as the main opposition party, the National Democratic Congress, organized a nationwide protest calling for an audit of the voter pool. The NDC, led by former President John Dramani Mahama, claims there are nearly 300,000 abnormalities, raising concerns about electoral integrity and transparency, despite Ghana's reputation for peaceful and fair election. These allegations have caused fears of a democratic backslide. The call for a forensic audit, facilitated by international bodies like the UNDP, highlights their growing distrust in the Electoral Commission, with the general election set for December. The outcome of these audits could have significant implications for Ghana's democratic future. If unresolved, it could undermine the legitimacy of the electoral process, casting a shadow over the nation's strong democratic history.
While in Burkina Faso, like many of its neighbors in the Sahel, it remains engulfed in violence perpetrated by Islamist armed groups, Human Rights Watch has expressed concern over the increasing attack on civilians, which have escalated since the beginning of the year. Islamist groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State have been responsible for at least 128 civilian deaths since February 2024. This act of violence, including the recent massacre of villagers and displaced persons, constitute war crimes according to international humanitarian law. The failure of Burkina Faso's military junta to curb the insurgency, despite pledges to end the attacks, has led to a growing sense of insecurity. The implications are profound, as more than half the country is now outside government control. Civilians are being drafted into volunteer defense forces, while the lack of air cover and intelligence continues to leave the nation vulnerable. Well, this instability further exacerbates the humanitarian crisis and threatens to destabilize the entire region.
And in Mali, the capital Bamako experienced a rare but deadly attack by militants affiliated with the Al-Qaeda Jama Nusra to Islam wa al-Muslimin. Now, the recent assault on the Faladi gendarme school and military base reflects the increasing boldness of terrorist groups in the region. Although the army managed to repel the attack and neutralize the assailants, the incident has raised alarm bells ahead of Mali's Independence Day celebration. These attacks, the first of its kind in years in the capital, underscores the growing pressure on Mali's military, which has already been stretched thin by ongoing jihadist insurgencies. The implications of this strike are significant as it highlights the fragility of security in Mali, even in its most protected urban centers. The government's call for the public to assist in intelligence gathering emphasizes the desperate need for stronger counter-terrorism efforts, though the continued attack highlights the challenge of restoring long-term peace in the country. News across the globe comes up next. The UN General Assembly has made a significant move, adopting a non-binding resolution that demands Israel's end in presence in the occupied Palestinian territory within 12 months. This resolution, drafted by Palestine, received overwhelming support, with 124 votes in favor, 14 against, and 43 abstentions. The resolution is based on an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice, which stated that Israel's occupation of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip is against international law. This move has been hailed as a turning point by the Palestinian ambassador, emphasizing its significance in their struggle for independence and justice. However, Israel's representatives strongly opposed the resolution, labeling it as diplomatic terrorism. Well, the US also expressed concerns, urging delegates to vote against the resolution, citing that it fails to acknowledge Hamas' control of Gaza and does not advance a negotiated solution and settlement. So the adoption of this resolution highlights the international community's growing concern over the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. While non-binding, it demonstrates the UN commitment to upholding international law and promoting a peaceful resolution. So the question is, at what point will they recognize Ambazonia and do the needful between Ambazonia and the Cameroons?
Well, still on the global reports, we have Israeli arrested over Iran plot to kill Netanyahu. Well, an Israel citizen has been arrested on suspicion of being involved in a plot by Iran to assassinate Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other top officials. Israel's security services said so. Israeli police and domestic intelligence said the man was twice smuggled into Iran and received payment to carry out missions. In a joint statement, they said the suspect was a businessman who had lived in Turkey and had Turkish contacts who had helped get him into Iran. The announcement comes at a time of soaring tensions between Iran and Israel, regional arch enemies.
Meanwhile, ahead of Turkey's BRICS bid ahead of Russian summit. Well, ahead of Russia hosting the 2024 BRICS summit from October 2022 to 24, Turkey's application to join the group of major emerging economies is coming under scrutiny. Of course, you know the BRICS. or Brazil, Russia, India, and China platform was initiated by Russia in 2009, I beg your pardon, as an informal club to provide members with a conduit for challenging the world under dominated by the US and its Western allies. South Africa joined in 2010, making them BRICS. So while analysts say Turkey's membership bid is more about playing both sides than challenging its Western allies, some also voice concerns that Ankara is moving away from the West. Well, we'll definitely follow up with that report. But for tonight, this is where we draw the curtain on tonight's Undaunted. But before we go, let's take a recap of the major stories. All right, before we go, let's take a look at the major highlights.
Well, on Undaunted tonight, we brought to you a man in his prime in Bamenda who speaks out on how he was abducted, abused, and detained by the LRC Colonial military and released only after paying 110,000 plus francs CFAs to the colonial military. We also brought to you colonial forces on Monday, September 16th, killing a young girl as they sprayed bullets haphazardly in the name of hunting the Ambazonian State Army. On the national report, still colonial surrogates targeting Ambazonian businesses for observing lockdown and shutting it down.
Well, tonight on Undaunted, we looked at the colonial forces' systematic oppression in Ambazonia, the IED attack in Bamenda as well. While on the African scene, we took a look at the Sudan's escalating conflicts and humanitarian crisis. While on the foreign scene, we told you that the UN General Assembly has adopted resolution on Israeli occupation. Now, that's it for tonight's Undaunted. Bringing into the news on Two Stories. On behalf of Sir Smart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in.
We'll leave you with ABC Amba News.